சொல்லுங்க சார்.
நல்ல மியூசிக்ல
நடராஜன் சார் போன்
சார் நாங்களாம் அதை போட்டு தான் சார் உள்ள ஜாயின் ஆகிருக்கோம்.
சுமதி மேடம் குட் ஈவினிங்.
ஜூம் ஐடி இன்னொரு
சுமதி மேடம் குட் ஈவினிங் சார். மேடம்
அதுக்கப்புறம் IEI TNSC
சாலை அந்த லிங்கை ஜாயின் கிளிக் பண்ணாவே ஆட்டோமேட்டிக்கா ஜாயின் ஆயிடுது.
வேணா நீங்க அந்த நான் அனுப்பிச்ச மெயில்ல இருக்கிற லிங்கை கூட நீங்க கிளிக் பண்ணலாம்.
சக்திவேல் சார் குட் ஈவினிங் சார்.
அது மெயில் கொஞ்சம் நாள் அனுப்பிச்சோம், அது இன்னைக்கு கூட வந்திருக்குன்னு நினைக்கிறேன். ஓகே சார், இன்னைக்கு அனுப்பிச்சது வெறும் ரிமைண்டர் தான், அதுல லிங்க் இருக்காது.
முடிஞ்சிருச்சா சார்?
இன்னைக்கு 2000 நாள் முடிஞ்சு.
42 பேர் ஜாயின் பண்ணிட்டாங்க.
ஹலோ காங்கேயம், how are you?
சக்தி நல்லா இருக்கமா, நீ எப்படி இருக்க?
Oh really great, nice to see you. See நம்ம வந்து இது வழியா தான் இன்னைக்கு மீட் பண்ணனும் தெரிஞ்சிருக்கு போல.
சரி சரி, எங்க நீ இதுல வந்து மாட்டனா? நீ மதுரையிலயா?
மதுரை சென்டர்ல தான்
சார். யூடியூப் லைவ் போயிட்டு இருக்கு சார்.
ஓகே சார், ஓகே.
ஆமா சார், 6 மணி ஆச்சு.
ஓகே சார், ஓகே ஓகே.
I will start.
Good evening everybody.
Good evening sir.
Kindly mute yourself and then whenever want unmute yourself and then start. Thank you sir. I think today that IEI Madurai Local Center celebrating the 40th year. This is the 7th day. Today Ranipete Center and Salem Center doing that lecture program. Up to date, the Coimbatore, Erode, Hosur, Trichy, Kanjipuram and Katangalathur and Kanyakumari centers are completed past 6 days. And inauguration, Dr. Mailsami Anadrai sir given the excellent lecture, excellent topic. So now today there is 2 speakers, one from Ranipete Center. Ranipete Center, they given that Mr. Srivatsan, the topic of necessity of water treatment in thermal power plant. And then second Salem, on behalf of the Salem, Mr. Jayakumar Balasubramaniam, he will talk on the topic of top 5 recent trends in the IoT. So this is the program today. Now I request Engineer Rajagopal sir give the welcome address and then take over that.
Thank you, Ramdas. I welcome all the participants for the 7th day program of the Madurai IEI 40th year celebration. As rightly pointed out by our chairman, Tamil Nadu State Center, today there are 2 hosts. Number 1 is Ranipete Local Center. The topic is necessity of water treatment in thermal power plant by Engineer S. Srivatsan. He is the manager, water system, BHEL Ranipete. And the second session, which will start around 6:45 or 7, the host is Salem Local Center. Topic, top 5 recent trends in IoT. Speaker, Mr. Jayakumar Balasubramanian. Emertex Information Technologies, Bangalore. We thank both the centers, Salem and Ranipete, for coming forward to share with us the technical session. I welcome you all once again. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Now I request Kangayan sir, Chairman of Ranipete Local Center, give a felicitation about that Madurai Local Center. Yes, sir. Sir, Kangayan sir.
Hello.
Sir, start பண்ணுங்க sir.
நீங்க பேசுங்க.
Okay sir, good evening sir. Good evening Chairman State Center and Chairman Madurai Local Center, Secretary of Madurai Local Center, and other office bearers and chairman secretaries of Institution of Engineers. Okay, good evening to all. I wish Madurai Local Center is celebrating 40th year anniversary. So it is extremely performing well. Like in Tamil, Madurai is pioneering in Veeram, Kalai, and everything. Like that, Madurai also it is excelling in Institution of Engineers activities. It has very good facilities like laboratories, libraries, guest house rooms, etc. to guide the peoples and promote the institution engineers. Okay, so it has got 2 times Best Center Award for their best performance. I wish Madurai Local Center to do better in the forthcoming years. Organizing the in line with the organizing of centenary these 40th year celebrations, it has organized Dr. Mailswamy's program. It was extremely well. Following that, other centers also are extremely performing well. So, in line with our these activities, our Ranipet Center is today giving lecture program on water systems. Okay, thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you. Okay.
Thanks a lot, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Saleh Manalan, sir, you take over and then give a. Sir, Saleh Manalan, sir.
So I am ready.
Just to introduction about the speaker, is given that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sir, good evening to all the participants of IEI for this 40th year celebration, Ruby Jubilee celebrations of Madurai Center. I take this opportunity to introduce my speaker, Mr. Srivatsan, who is a graduate of Mechanical Engineering with honors degree from Birla Institute of Technology, BITS Goa campus. And then he has done his MS degree also in BITS only. He is serving in BHEL Ranipet for the past 12 years, and he is working in water treatment systems. Actually, we are from Ranipet. Boiler Auxiliaries plant is our name of the plant in Ranipet. Though we deal with boiler auxiliaries, we also take this product of water treatment for boiler and power plants. So in this section, he has been working from his engineer trainee joining level, and then now he has grown up to manager level, and he has been taking care of the execution of the projects, proposal engineering, and it's one of our pillar of our department. And with this introduction, I give the dais to Mr. Srivatsan. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Sir, I hope I am audible.
Yeah.
Good evening, one and all present here. So I would like to thank each one of us to give this opportunity, and it's an honor and pleasure to be amongst so many senior members of Institute of Engineers today. So on the celebration of 40th anniversary of Madurai Local Center. So today I would like to present on necessities of water treatment in thermal power plants. So these are the topics which I propose to cover today. So what is the necessity of water treatment, if at all, in a power plant? In general, what is the necessary for water treatment? And classification of impurities in water, impurities present in water, and how do we measure these impurities? Then what are the water requirements? How much water is consumed in a power plant? Then we'll cover on what are the treatment systems involved in a thermal power plant. Then I will brief on the cycle of concentration in a cooling water cycle. Then some of the pictures also I would like to show of the water treatment systems installed in power plants. So what is the necessity of water treatment? So in general, you can see from this slide, almost 97% of water in the world is in salt form, that is seawater. Only 25% is available as fresh water. Out of his, 2.5%. Out of his 2.5%, 1.5% is already in glaciers. So on the Earth's surface, only 0.08% is available, and on the surface around 1.1% is available. So generally, if you see from this, the fresh water is very scarce. Second, water has two different types of impurities. That is suspended, the other are dissolved. Third, why do we need to treat water is different purpose requires different level of treatment. So that's the need for water treatment. Now here we can, we have a slide on classification of impurities in water. Basically, we'll classify water based on two types of impurities, suspended and dissolved. And the suspended and dissolved are again further break into two types, that is organic and inorganic. In suspended particles, organic is food materials, animal matter, and whatever in suspended form which are biodegradable. Inorganic are gravel, silt, sand, etc. Dissolved particles are hydrocarbons, that is fats, carbohydrates, etc. Then inorganic is, we all know all the salts which we have studied in our 12th standard, all the calcium, magnesium, sodium, chlorides, sulfates, nitrates, all these which are dissolved in water. Generally, water impurities are measured in terms of concentration. It is how many milligrams of impurities present in a liter of water, or we simply call it as ppm, parts per million. So water is classified as fresh, brackish water, salt, or seawater based on the amount of dissolved solids present in water. So if you see fresh water, the TDS may go up from 0 to 1500 ppm. So what we normally drink as per the WHO standards is around less than 500 ppm dissolved solids. Above 1500 to 10,000, it is called brackish water. Some of the bore wells in Chennai, if you can see, the TDS will range in this level. It can go up to 2000, 2300, 2700 ppm during the summer time. Then salt water, that is 10,000 to 45,000. This is like if you dig a well very near, close by to sea, that you may find this much TDS levels in water. Then seawater typically has a TDS almost all over the world around 30,000 to 45,000 ppm. The next question comes is, how do we measure these impurities? So we have told that we have to measure the concentration of the impurities in water. There are two methods available. One is offline, the other one is online. Offline, we measure the suspended solids in terms of total suspended solids measured in milligrams per liter. This is typically done in a laboratory. So we take a filter paper, measure its dry weight, then pass water through it, measure a known quantity of water through it, then dry the paper, again weigh it. So difference in weight will give you the total suspended solids in water. Total dissolved solids is measured in laboratory using gravimetry analysis. So like you evaporate it, condense the water, impurities stay behind while water is taken out. So whatever leftover salts present in water shows the dissolved solids. Of course, you need to first filter it to be free from the suspended particles present in it to measure the dissolved solids content. The next, so these processes usually in laboratory, it takes time to measure individual ions. We need to do the analysis of each and every salts present, how much calcium is present, how much magnesium is present, how much hardness is there, how much sulfates, chloride and all. So it typically takes a lot of time. In a power plant where the water treatment is done as a process, you need to measure all these parameters online. So for suspended particles to measure online, we use a turbidity meter. Turbidity is nothing but the amount of haziness present in water. How much light the particles of present in water can diffract. This is measured in nephelometric turbidity unit or NTU. So basically, the more number of particles are there, more diffraction of light will be there, more the turbidity. Otherwise, bigger particles will have more light diffraction and show high turbidity values. So turbidity shows basically whether there are suspended solids or not. To check the effectiveness of a treatment system in removing suspended particles, we usually measure the turbidity at the inlet of the system and at the outlet of the system. If there is a difference in turbidity, that is reduction in turbidity, that means the system is functioning. Next one, to measure the dissolved solids present in water, we use the electrical conductivity. Basically, salt water conducts electricity. So the more the particles, dissolved solids present in water, the more will be the conductivity. It is measured in microsiemens per centimeter. Here we can see some of the online instruments. That is the turbidity meter here, and this is the conductivity meter. And this is what we use generally in our home to measure the quality of our home or our system. This also measures the conductivity, and it converts as TDS and provides us the instant value. Next, we come to the water requirements in thermal power plant. You can see like a typical 800 megawatt thermal power plant requires around 2,400 meter cube per hour of water. So where does these waters go? First, it is basically consumed in cooling water makeup. We use cooling water to exchange heat from the condenser, and then we send it to the cooling tower, where the water is sprayed through a natural draft cooling tower or forced draft cooling tower, where the heat is lost by latent heat of vaporization, and as such, water evaporates there. So almost 76% of water in a power plant is consumed here. Second comes the service water requirements of various applications used in the power plant. Cleaning, ash depression, cold ash handling, coal dust suppression, and other cooling water purposes. Third one is the demineralized water or DM makeup water. So in the boiler cycle, we basically heat water, pure water, convert it into steam, send it through the turbines to get the work done, then pass it down to the condenser, and this cycle continues. So in this cycle, there may be some leakages which has to be made up. So that is done by the DM water makeup. This is around 1 to 2% of water, whatever water is present in the boiler water cycle. Next one is the drinking water purpose in the power plant. That is the potable water. So this is a summary of what are the water requirements in a power plant. So next we go on to how do we treat it. This is a typical diagram of a treatment system and water cycle present in a thermal power plant. So raw water comes from the raw water source. It goes to the raw water reservoir. The source can be a river water, a borewell water, or sea water. So now I will discuss mostly on the brackish water, that is river or borewell water. So once it comes to the raw water reservoir, we have a clarifier system. This is called a pre-treatment plant. Here, the suspended solids present in water is removed. Then this water goes to clarified water storage tank and to the DM plant. A portion of water is taken to the DM plant for treatment in dissolved solids. Another portion of water goes to the cooling water cycle. So now the water first requires in the 1 second. Yeah. So in the pre-treatment plant, the suspended solids are removed. Dissolved solids are passed out. So not all processes require removal of dissolved solids. Then in DM plant, we need to further remove the suspended solids to be suitable for the downstream application of removal of dissolved solids. So here in pre-treatment plant and DM plant consists of total suspended solids removal. Then there is a TDS removal, total dissolved solids removal, which happens in 2 stages. Next, this water is used for DM water application. A portion of water can be reduced TDS water can be used for post-treatment and used for drinking water applications also. The remaining water which is present in clarified water storage tank goes to the cooling water makeup cycle. where water goes to the cooling tower and comes back. Here, there are a lot of dust particles suspended in the atmosphere in the thermal power plant. So these gets accumulated in the cooling water forebay. So to remove these suspended particles, we have a TSS removal system that is called side stream filtration. Then there is a conditioned requirement of this cooling water cycle, because we are recycling this water in the cooling water system to minimize water wastage. Then we have suspended solids removal. Whatever waste collected in the thermal power plant comes back to the effluent treatment plant, where first it is neutralized, then suspended solids are removed in stage wise. Then there is a TDS reduction. Then this water is reused back to the cooling water cycle. Whatever waste from this thermal power plant basically has to be solid waste. You cannot dispose a liquid waste from a thermal power plant as per the recent MOEF norms. Next, we have a sewage treatment plant. Whatever toilets there in for thermal power plants are interlinked and connected to a common collection pit, wherein we use this water for sewage treatment, remove the suspended solids, then biodegradable items, and then reuse for horticulture or toilet flushing. So basically, whatever treatment we are discussing here in thermal power plants consists only of suspended solids removal or dissolved solids removal. One more thing what we have to add is the disinfection system present in thermal power plants. Any water which is stored in a tank is susceptible to microorganism growth or biological growth. So we need to keep a level of chlorine or some oxidizing agent concentration present in this system, so that biofouling does not happen. This is done by chlorination system basically. It is done in the cooling water cycle and also in the pre-treatment system area. Next, I would like to brief on the cycles of concentration. So in the cooling water, what happens is water from the clarified water storage tank, then it goes into the cooling water cycle. Here, water goes, it pumps into the condenser cycle where it absorbs the heat, water gets warm, then it is sprayed in the cooling tower, which is usually a natural draft or forced draft cooling tower. Here, water evaporates and there are some drift losses. And water again falls back to the cooling water channel or cooling water basin. So water goes and comes around. Again, it's pumped out into the cooling tower. It goes to the condenser, gets the heat, then dissipates the heat in the cooling tower and again comes back. This happened up to some cycles. That is called the cycle of concentration. What happens is the pure water normally evaporates and whatever minerals in the water stays behind. So ultimately we are sending out pure water here, so leading to higher concentration of impurities, that is dissolved and suspended impurities in the cooling water cycle. So the TDS keeps on increasing. So here the TDS keeps on increasing to the 5 times, which is called 5 cycle of concentration. So whatever water we need to blow down out will be of 2500 milligram per liter. What not if we don't blow down some water, this concentration keeps on increasing. Since we have a constant inlet water TDS of 500 milligrams per liter, we need to blow down a certain volume of water so that we maintain the concentration here at 2500 milligram per liter. If the concentration increases here, the condenser tubes and whatever piping will get corroded. So basically, we use condenser tube materials, copper. Then if it's higher concentrations of cycle of concentration, we go for SS304 or higher SS316L. So what we are doing here is we are reusing this water again and again, the maximum possible, which the material of construction here is accepts it. So this will lead to one more problem. What is that? Is that there will be scaling, corrosion, fouling, and microbiological growth in this cooling water cycle. What I'm talking about is the cooling water basin, the tower, the sprinklers everywhere. So we need to keep this water in condition so that it doesn't have an adverse effect on the condenser tubes or all the piping and equipments. So what is the remedy? So we have to do some chemical dosing continuously to maintain the quality of water in the cooling water cycle. Basically, all the materials are susceptible to scaling and corrosion. So we need to put scale inhibitor and corrosion inhibitor dosage, and we maintain some concentration in this water such that it does not affect any of the equipments in the cycle. Then to avoid this biological growth, we dose biocide. Additionally, we do disinfection by providing some concentration of chlorine or hypochlorite. Then for suspended solids removal, we go with a side stream filtration process. We take a portion of this cooling water cycle, treat it in a side stream filtration, again send back to the cooling towers. When we see in this cooling water cycle, around 90,000 meter cube of water is getting recycled, recirculated in the cooling water system. However, we make up around 1,500 to 1,800 meter cube per hour of water inside. So by increasing the cycle of concentration, we are saving more water. Otherwise, if it's once through, you need to have 90,000 meter cube of water, which is not available anywhere. So here we have some of the pictures of systems which are involved in total suspended solids removal. This is the first one. This is the clarifier. This is used in pre-treatment plant. So it is basically of a civil construction tank wherein influent water is passed into the center and it goes through this cycle. We are allowing basically the water to have a lot of contact time with the coagulating chemicals and allowing it to settle in this clarifier basin. So whatever suspended solids is there, if you allow time, it will settle automatically at the bottom, and we scrap it, collect the sludge and dispose it. Whatever water comes up the clarifier, it gets collected in the launders or weir arrangement, and then it will be of lesser suspended solids content. So basically we have a TSS level of up to 500 ppm in inlet of clarifiers, and what we get in the outlet of clarifier is around 10 ppm. The second stage of suspended solids removal is filtration system. In a filter like this is one is called horizontal filters. This is for vertical filters. All these filters have a similar bed arrangement internally, where water comes from the top. It passes through these various levels of media. One is anthracite coal, then fine sand, gravel, large gravel, and at the bottom, filtered water gets collected. This is like a natural filtration which happens in our ground. So here, the water from clarifier that with a TSS of 10 ppm goes in, and the outlet TSS level is around 2 ppm. This is a side stream filtration system which we use in the cooling water cycle. A portion of water is treated in this system for removal of TSS. So here TSS level is around 50 ppm, and treated water's level, this TSS is around less than 5 ppm. Next, for TDS reduction by removal, we have stage-wise reduction. First stage, we use reverse osmosis system. So what is reverse osmosis? If you have a container with a semi-permeable membrane, which basically allows only solvent to pass through the membrane, and salts are obstructed from it, that is called a semi-permeable membrane. And when you allow pass high concentration water on one side and dilute solution on the other side, by virtue of concentration difference, either we need to pull in dilute solution in the concentration solution side to maintain the concentration equilibrium on either side of the membrane, or we need to put a salt from here and put it this side. Since the membrane doesn't allow passage of salts through it, solvent from the dilution solution sites goes into the concentration solution site. This is called osmosis. So when you apply pressure higher than this osmotic pressure on the concentration solution side, you get dilution solution on the other side. That is called the reverse osmosis. So when a concentration solution of around 500 ppm is passed through this reverse osmosis membrane, you can typically get a quality of around 20 ppm dissolved solids. So this is how a reverse osmosis membrane cut section appears like. Water is passed through this feed water. It goes into this membrane, semi-permeable membranes. Then permeate gets collected in the central tube and permeate is taken out. Whatever water doesn't pass through the membrane gets concentrated on the other side. That is called RO reject or brine. This is a typical RO skid wherein we find here the high pressure pump for producing the pressure higher than the osmotic pressure. Then it goes to the reverse osmosis membranes, which are housed inside these pressure vessels. These are the cartridge filters which are installed prior to the high pressure pump to remove any suspended particles which may affect the system. So see, these RO membranes are basically designed to remove the dissolved solids. It will of course remove the suspended solids, but to have an optimum performance of this membrane, you need to remove the suspended solids first in the pre-treatment system. The next stage, now we have reduced the TDS level to 20 ppm. Now we have a conventional demineralization plant which has cation resins and anion resins present in these vessels, which absorb all the salts present in water. We can have a high concentration limit of up to 200 ppm, above which we may typically need a RO system prior to this upstream of this system to have an optimum outlet water quality. So here we are removing all the salts present in water. We have removed all the suspended particles present in water in the pre-treatment systems. Then here we are removing all the dissolved solids. This when you measure the conductivity in this water, it will be less than 0.1 microsiemens per centimeter, which is required for boiler application. Silica level also has high impact on the turbine blades. So this also is getting absorbed in the ion exchange resins, and the value out, at the outlet is around 0.01 ppm. Once these resins get exhausted, that is to the maximum possible level, it has absorbed all the salts. We need to stop the system. We need to regenerate the system using acid and alkali to remove all the adsorbed salts present in it, so that it can be utilized. It will be ready for the next cycle of demineralization. This process is called demilitarization system. So here we have covered almost the dissolved solids removal, suspended solids removal, and also the water treatment systems involved in thermal power plant. So we are open for questions.
Good evening.
Good evening, sir.
Before we go to the question answer, 1 minute. Sir, Rangareddy sir, you are in line.
Yes, sir. Good evening.
Good evening, sir. Today we have Dr. Rangareddy is a council member, and then he is a chairman of All India IEI All India Student Committee. So now I invite and welcome Dr. Rangareddy. Give you a felicitation about the Madurai local center, sir. Good evening, sir. You take over.
Sir, good evening, Rangareddy, sir.
Thank you very much.
Sir, Narayana, sir.
Students, kindly switch off your sharing the screen.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay, sir. Rangareddy, sir, you take over now.
Yes, sir. Good evening to everybody and all the corporate members, especially Chairman of Tamil Nadu State Sector, It's very honor and a privilege to me to attend this program, and thank you for the invitation. My special thanks to my colleague council person, our Rajamani and Madurai chairman. I am able to see a lot of chairmen of Madurai State and Madurai Local Center also.
Rameshwaram also is there.
Yeah, my congratulations.
Rameshwara is there, Kothari sir is there.
Wonderful, sir. Thank you very much. And I take this opportunity to congratulate and compliment Madurai Local Center for celebrating 40 years of its existence. And I am very proud and happy to see a lot of programs you are conducting. And I wish you many, many more years to come and you serve the engineering community years to come. Thank you for this opportunity and I wish them all the best for Madurai Local Center. Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, sir.
Sir. Thank you, sir. Rangareddy, sir.
Thank you,
So
Rangareddy, sir.
Now, anybody have any questions? You can ask Mr. Srivatsan. He's ready to answer that. Unmute yourself and then you can ask the question.
Good evening. Srivatsa, you have given a very good... Hello?
Good evening, sir.
Good evening, everybody. And question is to our presenter, Srivatsan. Srivatsan, first of all, I should appreciate you for the detailing of your water treatment systems, how it is designed and the purposes. And it is really very, very good technically. Okay. I appreciate you as a senior member of BHL Trichy.
Thank you, sir.
I was serving in field engineering service, and these boiler related things are very much remembering all the visits and problem solving, etc. Now my question is, it is long time question, and this is opportunity. I think you are in the field, so you can answer me.
Yes,
The
sir.
boiler blow down is it is with less impurities or without impurity, so to say.
Yes, sir.
Then why we are not taking it directly in the system, feedback system, instead of going for a treatment again?
Yeah, actually, the boiler blowdown, as you rightly said, has very less suspended solid content, but dissolved solids will be little higher. Maybe some of the impurities are getting gathered, like 20 ppm, or sometimes it will be little higher. So we again we need to take it up to the DM plant and treat it back. So suspended solids will be very less, but dissolved solids, it picks up. Actually, DM water is very, very unstable, you can say. It will be very susceptible or receptible to all the impurities once it comes into contact with atmosphere. So even if you measure the conductivity, once the water is just outside, the conductivity level will be little higher. So it picks up CO2 from the atmosphere. That's why we are storing this DM water storage tank in DM water in a DM water storage tank with a sheet of plastic balls to cover it from atmospheric this thing. And we have a CO2 absorber on the top. I hope have touched to answer your question, sir.
Of course, yeah. You have clarified it correctly.
எதுவுமே இல்லாம நம்ம இருந்திருக்கோம்.
Thank you.
கையில போய் அரைச்சி வலிக்க வலிச்சு.
Hello, good evening.
Yeah.
Mr. Srivastavan, my name is Mohan.
Good evening.
Your presentation is very nice, appreciated. In your presentation, you never, talked about the pH value of
question போட்டு
water.
நடத்தாம அப்படி சொல்லிட்டு பார்த்தா நடத்துனதுல இருந்து ஏதாச்சும் டவுட்னா क्वेश्चन கேளுங்க.
I think a lot of interference.
One minute, sir.
Yeah.
Sir, you continue yourself.
Yes, please.
Yeah, Mr. Srivasthan, this is Mohan.
Yes,
in your presentation, you have not, talked about the pH values and the, effect of higher pH in water treatment or in DM or in
Yes,
the boiler. That is my one question. The other one, in case, the other impurities like arsenic or mercury or the oil content, how these things are dealt in the thermal power plant during the water treatment.
Okay, sir. So first to go about this pH. So the raw water, whatever we have the water coming from the source, that is the river water or the borewell water or sea water, the pH will be around 7.5 to 8.3. Maximum sea water will have little higher, around 8.3 maximum. So it will be in this range only. So we don't do much of the worry on this pH effects in the raw water. So we have in the clarifier system, we dose lime in case you require any softening requirement in the pre-treatment. So if the hardness is high, we do lime softening. So once you do lime softening, the pH will increase. So after that, we have acid dosing to maintain the pH somewhere in 7 ppm. 7 to 7.5 ppm is ideal for all treatment system in a power plant, water treatment systems. So we maintain this pH everywhere. If you, the next point is that pH in demineralized water. So demineralized water, normally in any specification or requirement, they put 6.8 to 7.2 pH. But the pH level, which can be measured when there are no salts in water, it will be very erratic to measure that. We cannot arrive at a value of pH 6.8 to 7.5 in a demineralized water having conductivity less than 0.1 microsiemens per centimeter, because pH is contributed by hydrogen ions present in water, and all the other each of the that is bicarbonates, hydroxides present in water. When all these are removed, almost maintained at nil level, the pH value may not be applicable properly. It cannot, the instrument cannot read properly. So once DM water is there, it is going to boiler cycle where the pH is maintained around 9 using hydrazine dosing. After that, whatever wastewater coming is, like, we will neutralize this water and maintain at 7.2 8.5 in the effluent treatment plant. We collect all this water there, we neutralize it in the effluent treatment plant in power plant. Now for the second question, what you have asked about the arsenic and other removal, these are heavy metals basically. If these are present in normal river water, it won't be there, but if it is present, we need to use organosulfide dosing or some kind of chemical treatment to settle down all these heavy metals into oxides and precipitate it out. Then we go into the treatment part. But in a power plant, we won't expect any of these coming in contact with water and any wastewater coming in a power plant. If at all it comes, we need to dose chemical this organosulfide dosing in the pre-treatment, or if at all any mercury content something comes into contact with the water in any wash water, it gets collected in the effluent treatment plant where we do this dosing to oxidize this oxidize and precipitate these heavy metals and reuse the water.
Thank you.
Have I answered your question, sir?
Yeah, it's okay. Thank you for your presentation and your clarification on my queries. I request Chairman and you, if you circulate this presentation to all the members, it will be very helpful.
Sure, sir. Sure, sir.
But it is available in YouTube, sir.
Okay.
Today entire program recorded and it's available in the YouTube channel, sir.
Sometimes it's not possible to download from the YouTube. Just I request to circulate the presentation only.
Okay.
Sure. Thank you very much.
Just you type your email ID and your name in the chat box. We will arrange to send the PPT, sir.
Definitely, yeah. I will do now. My mail ID, other details in the chat box. Thank you.
Okay.
Sir, good evening, sir. Mr. Mohan, sir. I am Salai Manalan. Actually, in the cooling water recycling is there now. When we do this recycling, the pH also will increase, for which we do sulfuric acid dosing in the cooling water treatment system. That is also being taken care of by pH by acid dosing for pH control.
Thank you,
Okay,
sir.
sir.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, but in the presentation, it's not covered. That's what my query.
yeah,
Mr. Shivasavan clarified me. Okay. Thank you.
Right.
Any other questions? So let us move to the next session.
We can go to the next week.
Okay, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Sir, Arul Selvan, sir. Arul Selvan, sir.
Yes, sir.
Are you in line?
Yes, sir.
Okay, sir. So now I invite Dr. Arul Selvan is chairman of Salem Local Center. Give the felicitations about Madurai Local Center, sir. So Arul Selvan, sir, kindly take over that.
Okay, sir. Sir, good evening to all of you. Respected chairman of
Not clear.
Sir, audio not clear, sir.
எல்லாரையும் vote பண்ணுங்க ராம்தாஸ்.
Okay.
Sir, respected chairman of the Tamil Nadu State Center, Ramadas, sir. Is it audible, sir?
Yes, sir. கொஞ்சம் மைக்க பக்கத்துல வச்சுங்க.
Then respected chairman of the Madurai Local Center, Engineer Rajagopal, sir. And honorary secretary of the Madurai Local Center, Narayanaswamy, sir. Then the secretary of the other local centers and council members, corporate members, and guests. So good evening to all of you. First of all, I welcome today's chief guest, Sri Vatsan sir and Jayakumar Balasubramanian sir for accepting our invitation to act as a resource person for these two sections. So I welcome these two resource persons. And also I welcome all the chairmen of the local centers and the Tamil Nadu State Center for this two webinars. So first of all, I congratulate the Madurai Local Center for celebrating its 40th anniversary. So I say the Madurai Local Center is a role model for all of us because it is having their own building and a guest lecture, then library hall, then AIME exam center, and continuously maintaining 1% of the membership, and also it gets the 2 times best local center award. Then also it received a student chapter award. Then it has the water testing laboratory, and it also conducting the national level and the council meeting. So for this, I thank all the past presidents and honorary secretary of the Madurai Local Center. So for elevating the Madurai Local Center this level. So I also congratulate the present chairman of the local center, Rajagopal sir and Narayanaswamy sir, to maintain the standard, and I wish during this period the Madurai Center to elevate the further highest level. So on behalf of the Salem Local Center, corporate members and committee members, I congratulate the Madurai Local Center for to have furthermore achievements in their future. Thank you very much, sir. So I invite our honorary secretary, Engineer S. Loganaran sir, to give brief report about the today's guest. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, sir. Sir, myself, Loganaran, honorary secretary, Salem Local Center. So I respected our state committee chairman, Engineer Ramdas sir, and chairman and secretary of Madurai Local Center, and all the committee members of state committee as well as the local center and members of the institution of engineers. Very good evening. So on behalf of all the members of the Salem Local Center, we wholeheartedly congratulate the Madurai Local Center for celebrating the 40th year in a very grand manner. As said by our chairman, Engineer Arul Selvan sir, it is really a role model how to conduct a local center in our state, sir. So we are very proud of you. So we are also contributing in a smaller way. So in this way, we really thank Engineer Jayakumar Balasubramanian. He is having a very rich experience in the field of computer science. He has completed BTech in NITT, that is National Institute of Technology, Warangal, during the year 2001. Since then, he has worked in various companies, and now he is one of the director in the Emitex Information Technology, giving the vast training and other services in the field of computer field. So the IoT is really a interesting topic and emerging topic. So on this occasion, I really thank Engineer B. Jayakumar for accepting to deliver a lecture on the IoT, as well as I also thank our engineer INR, a member of Salem Local Center, for arranging this elite speaker to all the forum of Institution of Engineers on the eve of 40th year celebration of the Madurai Local Center. So now I request Engineer Jayakumar Balasubramanian to take over the session. Thank you all for the opportunity given. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Yes.
Am I audible, sir?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Sir.
Okay, all right. So it's been a great honor and pleasure to interact with such a senior engineers from all over the state of Tamil Nadu. It's been great, especially in these times where there's a pandemic around and we're all locked up in our house. It's always great to come out in form of virtual conferences and share our learnings, right? So basically, I would like to thank Arul Selvan sir, basically to introduce him to this forum. And special thanks to INR sir, who is connecting me to this forum again via Arul Selvan sir. We have been, our organization has been hiring graduates from Tyagarajar Polytechnic. So it's been a great honor to be associated with them and the type of work that they've been doing. So we have been fortunate enough to be connected with this set of people, right? So with this, I would like to share my screen.
Yes, sir.
Okay, 1 second, I'll share my screen, sir. Just a second, sir.
From the screen sharing.
I already given, sir. This is our co-host.
Are you able to see, sir, my presentation?
Yes.
All right. Let me briefly introduce myself. Sir, my name is Jayakumar Balasubramanian. I am a native of Erode. I studied my schooling there until I went to my engineering in Warangal. So that way, it's also equally pressure for me to come back and share my knowledge and learnings with senior people from my home state of Tamil Nadu. My organization is Immersive Information Technologies. Basically, I'm one of the director and co-founder in this organization, right? So I'd like to briefly introduce again. As sir said, I'm from computer science background. I graduated from NIT. It was called Regional Engineering College when we studied in Warangal, Telangana. After my schooling, I went there. After that, I went into the typical software development in the field of embedded systems. I started my career with a startup called Ishoni Networks, followed by Hewlett Packard, where I was involved in building inkjet printers, mainly the connectivity and networking firmware, all the networking software associated with that. After that, I went to Huawei. Huawei Technologies is a telecommunication major, as most of you know. These days, they're also in controversy due to the India-China, or the Make in India initiatives, right? So predominantly, Huawei is a telecommunication company. I was heading their embedded Linux group, where I was part of leading a set of R&D engineers to primarily take care of the embedded Linux distributions of Huawei's product lines. So primarily my area of expertise comes from the embedded software into various domains like consumer networking, printers, and telecommunication devices. So that's what I've been working for about 13 years. So in that 13 years of career with various corporates, I had an entire range of experience starting from conceptualizing an idea to all the way taking into the market and making live deployments. And I played various roles in this my corporate career, being a technical leader, project program manager, and a group manager. So after about 12 and a half, 13 years with these various segments, I quit and I joined Emergy. I'll talk about my entrepreneurial journey in my next slide. So I'm very passionate because I grew from a town background and I got my skill from a great institution like NIT. It's always thing when I look back, I believe that having the right skill plays a very important role. So that's where I taken it as a passion, and I quit my corporate career in 2014. And for the past 7 odd years, I've been instrumental in building my own organization, my own that is Emergy. So I've been very passionate in terms of sharing my knowledge also. So wherever there is a forum to share, or wherever there is a forum to learn, I am open. That's when Ainar sir and Arun Selvan sir approached me. I didn't even think twice. I said yes, no, whatever it takes, let us go and do it, right? So in fact, the previous presentation by Mr. Srivatsan, I got so many things to learn because being from a computer science background, I tend to miss the mechanical and water treatment aspect of it, right? So there is always some or the other learning wherever we go. So that's why I take it. It's not only about sharing my knowledge, and also to learn from others, people working in different domains, and also from senior personnel. So that's about myself. For my organization, as I told, we are an education company. Our primary role is in the skill building area. So primarily we train engineers who pass out of engineering colleges. As you know, in India, there are about 15 lakhs engineers pass out every year. Hardly minuscule of them have the employability skills, especially when it comes to higher end technologies like embedded systems, IoT, or full stack web development. So we take these people who finish their engineering and put them on hands-on practical training programs, and then we make them employable. And also, as you know, once people get into the job, they have various skill requirements. So we also train working professionals and organizations on a very customized and a specific skill set. So we train people anywhere from 2 years all the way up to 15, 20 years of experience. So that's what we have been doing as an organization. And as the diagram shows, you are building a pot using a hand, right? So basically, that's what our approach is all about, making things hands-on, making things practical, do mistakes, learn, improve. So that's been an approach we believe is the right way to learn. And that's what we try to inculcate in our learning programs as well. And these are all some of the statistics what we have done. We trained about 60,000 plus graduates so far. We done about 100 plus corporate training assignments. About 366 placement companies hire our trained graduates, name it semiconductor, name it telecom, name it startups, mid-sized organizations, research organizations. Pretty much everybody hires our trained engineers. And also we do a lot of customized training programs as well. Okay. So that's about myself and my organization. I hope I am audible, sir.
Yes.
Okay, all right. This is always sometimes challenging in terms of good to know that. So let me proceed. So this particular topic, IoT, is being broadly debated, broadly discussed, and defining IoT is always been a challenge, right? So I would like to take the previous case. I was noting down a few points when Mr. Srivatsan was presenting about the water treatment plant, right? So basically, we talk about a traditional industry like a water treatment plant, or it could be any sort of manufacturing plant. Okay. So we're all talking about digitization, right? How do we basically make the whole industry go digital? So when I say go digital, it's all about monitoring and predicting, and also taking some proactive measures. So we spoke about basically temperature, pressure, humidity, filtering, so concentration, right? Mr. Stevenson covered a whole lot of topics, right? So what if we wanted to digitize the whole industry so that even we can, right? For example, when potentially a boiler will burst, right? What is the probability of it is bursting, right? So IoT is a technology which is going to sit in every digital, every traditional entity that you can think of, ranging from a door or a boiler or a water treatment equipment to anything that we can think of. For example, I was looking into a use case where somebody installed a IoT into a cigarette smoking box, right? So that it translates how many cigarettes an individual is smoking per day, right? So it can be as simple as that, or it can be as complex as what Mr. Sivatsan has presented in terms of water treatment plant. So considering that we are all from a broad engineering background, I don't want to get more detail into programming. That's why I also checked with Arul Silvan sir and INR sir about the target participants. So I'll keep it at a higher level so that we all can understand and relate and also apply to our professions, right? And of course, I'll be more than glad to answer the questions in the end, right? So what does this IoT architecture consist of, right? So the first piece that comes out is the IoT device, right? We spoke about the water treatment plant. Think about installing sensors and a very small device that sits in all these particular equipments that we can think of, right? So that's where the first piece comes into, which is typically a small device which has a sensor and a very minuscule programming done it at the end, right? So this basically takes care of the sensing or getting certain first level information about the device. For example, what is the current temperature inside the device, right? It starts with very elementary information about that. Then we can think of there are multiple such devices. I just saw the entire flow diagram that Mr. Sivatsan has shared, where you wanted to basically put them together so that you can have at least a centralized system where you can aggregate the data, right? Because so many equipments coming and pouring data from all over this equipment. So that's why we call it as an IoT gateway. So the IoT gateway basically integrates multiple IoT devices, and then basically it actually acts as a gateway so that it can further transmit that particular data to internet, right? So that's where your what you call the typical internet comes into picture. And then on the other side of internet, we have the cloud, where you talk about the IoT platform that sits into picture. And eventually those platforms will give you the applications or an interface which helps you to basically monitor the plant and also take certain predictive and corrective actions. For example, we see that in one particular boiler, the temperature is varying very much, right? So you'll get an indicator in the circle number 5 I mentioned, so that we can go back and take a corrective action. Again, that corrective action can be a manual action, or it could be an automated action also, right? So that's what it is all about. I see some of them as raising their hands. I would request sirs to wait so that we can take up that question. Okay, Srinivasan sir, I would request you to hold on. We'll definitely take questions in the end. So that's what we talk about IoT. We can apply any cases there, be it a street light management, or we talk about, as I was talking about, how many cigarettes somebody has smoked, okay, or for example, how much of a sweet individual is concerned. For example, there is a diabetic patient, right? He would like to consume sweets, but he's consumed a little bit more, right? It can probably send an alert to wife saying that, no, this guy has consumed more sweet in his office, right? So it can be any case. The challenge, as I mentioned, right, it's very broad. Just move on to the second slide, right? This particular IoT has become like a conglomeration of any technology that we think about, right? For example, when I say IoT device, it has got a tons of technology associated with it, be it programming, a microcontroller, which involves certain sensors, actuators, and you need to interface with any IoT gateway using a particular protocol like a Bluetooth or RS-232, or erstwhile industrial RS-485, etc., right? And so many protocols that comes into picture. So there is one piece which you call IoT device. Then when you move on to IoT gateway, which is relatively more powerful device, which actually monitors multiple IoT IoT gateway, which monitors multiple IoT devices, where you talk about much more powerful device which runs on OS, right? Typically, it could be a Linux or Android, or it could be anything, right? That's what you also call edge computing. I'll talk about it shortly. Right? So that's the second piece which we talk about, IoT gateway. Then when you move on to the network, whole lot of things comes into picture. Today we talk about 5G networks getting deployed, right? So which need to be very lightweight, and we should be able to seamlessly send the data up and down via the network, where the quality of service also matters. What if, for example, there is a boiler temperature is rising in a very disproportionate manner, but it is not getting caught in the application, right? Basically, it will lead to a disaster, right? So quality of service, ensuring that there's a good internet connectivity matters a lot in Internet of Things, because if you take internet from IoT, it will remain things, right? It's of no use to us, right? And then subsequently moving on, we talk about cloud, okay, where there are a whole lot of technology coming to picture today. Name any big player, for example, Amazon or IBM or Cisco. Okay, today they are not in cloud, they're not in business. It's as simple as that, right? Even if we talk about Zoom, we are doing this whole lot of video conferencing. It's basically delivered from cloud, right? We are sitting on all over the place and we are able to converse, right? So that's what plays a very quite essential role in IoT also, which includes basically an IoT platform which exposes various web services. And think about, right, how much amount of data points that this cloud will be receiving, right, from a single plant. Looking at the kind of equipment that we saw, there's a huge amount of data coming on a minute-to-minute basis or even a second-to-second basis, right? So basically, it has to be really a powerhouse, basically getting all those data and apply what we call business intelligence and analytics, right? So that it can be further represented in form of an application, right? Application is what, as a plant manager or an end user, or even for that matter, wife sitting at home and monitoring her husband's, cigarette consumption or a sugar consumption, right? It's basically could be a web application, it could be a mobile application, or it could be any custom interface, right? Or an industry-grade device where you can have a panel which displays the whole information, right? So the point I'm trying to say is, right, this is a typical thing which I say in all my talks about IoT. It's my, I'm sure all of us would have heard about this particular story about an elephant, right? There are 6 people, blind people, holding on to different parts of the elephant, and they describe the elephant in their own way. For example, the guy who is holding on to the basically leg, he says it looks like a tree, right? Whereas there is another person holding on to the trunk. So whom are holding on to a different part of the elephant, they describe elephant the way they like it, right? Or they see it, right? The reason being, elephant is so big, right? It's not, for example, a smaller animal like a cat where everybody can see, right? Elephant, all of them cannot be able to see. And especially when it comes to blind person, it becomes all the more challenging, right? So when I talk about IoT, the previous slide I shown, right? Just think about the sheer complexity of these technologies, right? Okay, it's like we can't even say elephant; it's like a giant, right? Right from you include mechanical engineering into it, chemical engineering into it. You involve programming. You involve a lot of electronics, right? So it's a conglomeration of cross-disciplinary engineering subjects that are coming together. That way, it makes all the more relevant to talk about this topic in a Institute of Engineer seminar, right? So because many of you I see coming from a traditional or a core engineering function like BHEL and many other public sector companies, right? So this is what digitization can do, right? Sitting in a control room or a centralized place, you'll be able to predict, you'll be able to analyze and take informed decisions, which is today done in a manual fashion, or we are doing it with a lot of experience, right? But if the data is represented in the right way, decisions can be done easier, and it can automate many things, right? So this is how I would like to basically put across IoT to the participants. Okay, so I would like to stop here and open my chat box. Whether am I making sense? Sir, is it fine? My pace and whatever explained so far.
So continue yourself. It's fine. Your audio and everything is fine.
Okay, sir. Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
Just move on. So now moving on, right? In this topic, right? I don't want to basically trends when I talk about what are the top 5 things that we should be looking at. Right? Again, it's not my top 5. Basically, looking into various trends, because there are also a lot of articles being published, top 100 trends, top 20 trends, and trends for 2020, etc. Right? This is my understanding. What I believe could be relevant for the audience and based on my understanding about IoT. And my talk or my trends that I'm going to share in a very simple way, I'm going to more focus on the pieces 1, 2, and to some extent 3. Okay? Because as I told, there are a lot of technologies come together. I may not be able to talk a lot about cloud and applications, right? I'll mainly stick to device, gateway, and network, so that some of you who are working in the core industry will be also able to relate to what we're talking, right? It's more about electronics and embedded perspective. Okay. So the first point that I would like to talk about is what you call as edge computing, right? The trend that we are seeing is the edge is getting more powerful and the edge is getting more prominent in the recent days. When I say edge, for example, the point number 2, right, where I mentioned multiple IoT devices are getting monitored or aggregated by Iot Gateway, right? So this Iot Gateway is a device which sits between the network and the basically the devices. So this edge is getting more powerful. So earlier, these devices, if you look at, right, there are reasonably powerful machines which primarily acts as a bridge between 1 and 3. That was how the initial IoT solutions were conceived, right? So this created some more issue, because if you are simply acting as a bridge between 1 and 3, basically this particular decision, which is supposed to be made at 2, it goes all the way up to 4, right, which is cloud, right? And then subsequently, this particular information gets back to 2 and then to 1, right? So this was creating a lot of problem. So today, wherever you go and look into the latest thing about IoT conferences or even the technology trends, right? They say the power of computing earlier, which was only seen as 4, which is cloud, which is getting distributed between 2 and 4 now. So that's what we mean by edge computing or edge edge calculation in terms of IoT. So what does it mean, right? So edge computing basically distributes the load of data processing, because as I told, a lot of data that comes into picture. I'll show you some example from the core industry, which I recently came across, right? And because of this, instead of taking the decision at 2, we don't need to go all the way up to cloud. It can be taken locally and it can be taken faster. Okay. And powerful edge devices are becoming more powerful, they're becoming more affordable, right? As you know, one of the common trend, irrespective of whatever the industry that we are coming from, the computing is becoming faster and it is getting cheaper, right? Just think about our own laptops or PCs, right? Every 2 years, you see the price goes down, the feature goes better, the storage becomes better, the speed becomes better, right? So that way, by moving the computing power more into the edge devices, you can run what I call AI, right? What you call analytics or artificial intelligence, so that we can predict these things earlier, right? Rather than going to a cloud and analyzing, by analyzing in the edge itself, things can become better. So that's what we mean by edge computing, right? And cloud or centralized system makes this make the overall thing more stressed, because you also need to pay for your network bandwidth, which is again an expensive affair, rather than taking the decisions locally. Right? Compared to cloud, edge is cost effective, right? Because every time we are taking a cloud service, they call it as what you call pay as you go, which you call platform as a service or software as a service. They keep charging more as you are consuming more bandwidth or any other resources in the server side. So that way cost can be optimized, right? So some of the things that edge computing can do is real-time data processing at the local level itself, and basic data visualization and analytics, at least some of the critical parameters, like for example, humidity is running too high, pressure is running too low, etc. Right? And some kind of a data caching and buffering can be done locally, so that the cloud can consume the data in a much more regulated manner. Right? So this is all we see one major trend. So let me repeat, going back to my previous slide. Okay. Instead of 4, things are getting shifted towards circle number 2, which is nothing but the edge. Then the second thing that we talk about coming further down is about devices, right? With device is actually the thing which interface with a non-digital entity, be it a boiler, be it a door, or be it any kind of industrial device that we can think of, or a consumer device that we can think of, right? So devices are getting smart. So when we say smarter, what do we mean, right? Okay. So in the edge and cloud, we saw the resources are increasing. Okay. But in the device side, when you look at, things are getting smaller and smaller. So they're thinking with a relatively smaller size, right? One of the common debate that we get into is feature versus function. The form factor versus functionality, right? How smaller the device can become and how better it can give the functionality. For example, be it in form of our cell phones, right? You can see how the form is reducing, but functionality is increasing, right? So the same thing applies to IoT devices also. So one of the key trend that we are seeing is how much smaller they can become and how much more functionality they can become, right? So here, one of the key things that we talk about devices is power management, right? Similarly, when I mentioned about edge computing, the network is basically the costly affair where you need to pay for the bandwidth. Similarly, when we spoke about devices, one of the key elements that comes into picture is how much amount of power they consume. I'm sure being experts in a mechanical industry and electrical industry or any other core industry, I'm sure controlling power or reducing the electricity usage is one of the key priority for any core engineer that we can think of today, right? So when it comes to smarter devices, they're thinking not only ensuring that, for example, when you are not operating particular device, can we manually switch off? So that was the original thinking. Now we are thinking of, can we switch off using software, right? So more power management using what we call software. So that is a trend that we are seeing. Other thing, whenever we talk about IoT, is that the topic of security, right? What if somebody breaks into the network and then steals also all the data about your own industry or your own local, information, which again it becomes a wealth today. Today they say, data is the new oil, right? Whomever is get the data, they become more powerful. Probably we see a traditional oil company like Reliance, they're getting a data company today because they know that's where the future is going to be. I'm sure all of us are watching about the investments that they've been raising in these challenging pandemic times. Okay? So security becomes a very natural and very integral part of anything that we can think of. Okay? So since IoT connects so many entities together, security plays a very critical role. For example, one of the statistics they say 100 million cyber attacks have happened only in the first half of 2019, right? And especially we know our own neighboring countries like China, where they pay and then they make people hack the network, right? Okay, today even to use Zoom, there was a concern about security. Sometime back, there was a lot of controversy. There are a lot of thing about should we use Zoom or not, right? Okay, so these things become integral part of IoT also. But when it comes to device which sits in the next to the leaf of the IoT solution, there are features like OTA. When I say OTA, it's over there upgrade, right? I found a security hole in a device which is sitting in my plant, which is 100 kilometers away from me. I cannot go back, pull out the device, and then I can replace the device, or I can do something, right? As you might have seen, right, our apps, right, mobile apps, and even the Android operating system, it keeps pushing on upgrades, right? Can we upgrade and then it becomes basically secure, right? So today there is a lot of push in the smaller IoT devices to be more secure by supporting features like over-there upgrade. So that anytime you feel there's a potential vulnerability, you can push an update, like how a Facebook app or any other Android app guy pushing an update, so that the device gets automatically updated with 600 kilometers from you in a small device in a plant, so that you maintain your network in a overall network in a very safe manner. So security is another consideration similar to the power management. Okay, and when I talk about power management, so power majorly consumed by the device, right, as we know, and one of the key element in power management is about how much information I can transfer by using as less power as possible. Okay? That's where we talk about Bluetooth in terms of mesh networking, where multiple devices in the industry can be connected using a mesh, and they transfer the data to the edge or IoT device by using as less electricity as possible, and more efficient possible. So this is again going back to the second point of power management. And as you know, more devices are coming in, more protocols are getting invented these days, right? You talk about ultra wideband, we talk about USB 3.0, right? And we talk about gigabit Ethernet. So more and more networking and connectivity technologies are coming up. And even when you talk about security, we can even talk about things like blockchain, etc. So how do we basically, make them work together? So that's where multiple peripherals and interfacing also plays a very important role, right? So I spoke about two trends. One was in the IoT gateway or in the edge computing. Then we came one level down and we saw the end device, what are the important aspects in terms of power, security, efficiency, etc. So that's the second trend we are seeing across all the industries. Okay. And third one, when you talk about the devices, as I told, they're getting smaller and smarter. There is also a huge push from all the big companies that we can think of to introduce a very lightweight OS. Right? When you talk about a mobile phone today, majority of them run Android, and some of them run iOS. Right? But Android can run in a very rich interface today. As you know, our phones are getting more powerful. They're getting more multi-core processors, and my RAM consumption is going high, and even the storage is going high. Okay? But as I mentioned in my previous trend, right, in terms of devices, they're getting smaller and smaller, right? Where they're trying to see how can I cut the resources so that I can do as many things as I want by making as little investment as I can. So that's where, in a very tiny device, can I run an operating systems? For example, Android, right? All of us are familiar like that. Android from Google has released a operating system which is specifically tuned for small IoT devices, which they call Android Things, right? And we talk about FreeRTOS, which is another open source based RTOS which has been remaining for a long period of time. Now, basically, Amazon come and basically acquired that particular company because they know even big player like Google or Amazon, if they cannot support devices, their IoT solutions will be of no use. As we saw, all the 5 pieces has to work together to give an end-to-end IoT experience. The similar lines, we have another new operating systems like Mongoose Os or ARM embedded, which are coming into picture. So which you can call it as, what you call the new embedded OS. It is not because they cannot run traditional Linux or any other operating systems because the resources are very small. I'm talking about, for example, a device with 8 MB of RAM and probably about 25 or 30 MB of storage, right? How can I run an operating system in that, in a small device which sits in my industry, right? So this is a Things OS. Almost all the major players that we can think of, right, be it Google or Amazon, they're heavily investing in this side also. That's the third trend. It makes the development faster, of course, because they give a lot of interfaces. And finally, I talk about the the software or the when we talk about the edge computing, it's of no use if there is not enough power to support from the hardware. The software cannot exist alone without the hardware. So that's where we have this particular hardware. Today, if you look at any major players, they can basically think about pushing more and more powerful hardware. Okay, for example, if you think about a company like NVIDIA, right? I'm sure all of us would have heard this company. Or if not, for example, we've been using graphics card in our laptops. Right? They started as a graphic processing unit company, right? And then they went into something called, the accelerated GPU. And then today they talk about TPU, which is nothing but a TensorFlow processing unit, right? So what I'm telling is, as the data is getting more and more, there is, absolutely more need for the hardware to become powerful. Okay? There is one use case mentioned in point number 2. For example, recently I was in conversation where I understand an industrial frying device, which basically manufactures chips, right? In order to measure and predict that particular machine's performance and maintainability, 87 lakhs data points have been collected. Now imagine you need to process 87 lakhs data points and come up with a model to basically analyze and predict how this device will look like or when it would require maintenance, etc. in the future. Okay? We cannot run it in a normal hardware. Basically it will take forever to basically process these things. So that's where more powerful edge computing devices. So one example I shown here, we talk about the Jetson NVIDIA. which is a kind of a hardware which is custom designed for basically doing more powerful edge computing. Okay, in fact, traditional companies like NVIDIA or even for that matter Intel, they're reinventing. Okay, earlier they saw the PC revolution, then they saw the mobile phone revolution. Now they're custom manufacturing chipsets and even platforms like what is shown, mainly to ensure and support the large scale data requirements of IoT. And we cannot just imagine how much amount of data is getting processed across all the entities, right? Things like parallel computing, and that doing that parallel computing in a distributed internet fashion, etc., are going to become more and more relevant as we move forward. And another interesting thing about IoT is that it is not necessary that you are transmitting data only in text format. Okay? We talk about video and we talk about image-based, processing. I'm sure all of us are listening to a lot of new solutions that are getting invented due to COVID-19, etc. But we talk about face recognition, right? And imagine you need to recognize millions of faces and you need to send to a centralized entity and then get back, right? Think about the amount of image processing capability the hardware should have. So that's where the hardware is getting more powerful, especially in the edge side, which is going back to the trend number 1 I spoke about, right? So it's getting more power in form of these type of processing entities, right? Okay. And last one, I cannot stop but talk about the skills point of view. I see a lot of academicians, a lot of people involved in some or other form of skill building, right? Okay, is about JavaScript. So earlier, when I say the programming or designing perspective, traditionally all these embedded systems, be it the IoT device or a edge computing device that we spoke about, they've been primarily programmed using languages like C or C++, or even in some cases, if you look at relatively older devices, they might have been even programmed using assembly languages, right? Okay, so that's what is been traditionally. It was used mainly because, as I told, the device expects things to be smaller and smarter. So your source code or the software size need to be smaller. That's where C or C++ acted as a middle-level language, and it's supported. Okay, but what is I am seeing is that that particular trend is also changing, where JavaScript is getting more prominent. People who have been involved, I'm sure all of you would have heard about JavaScript. JavaScript was initially used as a website programming language, or a scripting language that runs in a browser. But today, that has been predominantly getting used to program IoT devices and gateways. Okay. For example, there is a variant of JavaScript called Cylon.js, which is traditionally, being used in web programming. It is getting transitioned into areas like artificial intelligence, robotics, IoT device programming, etc., so that things can become easier. Right today, if you look at our own next generation of people, today at the age of 15 and 16, people are learning Python, okay, instead of learning C and C++, right? So basically, by learning this JavaScript language, which will definitely make a lot of value to an engineer, and also helps to basically leverage and program the embedded systems, and when it comes to the IoT perspective. Okay. So if you're looking forward to learn something in this pandemic times or something, I'm sure you should definitely give a shot at JavaScript. Okay. So that's what is that trend. Okay. The fifth trend. So let me summarize. First one was edge computing, where the computation power is shifting more towards the edge from the cloud. Second one was devices are getting smaller and smarter with more efficient power handling, more easier way of peripheral interfacing, etc. And then the third, we spoke about basically the the Things OS, where big companies are investing and making operating systems for tiny devices, and nothing is possible without a very powerful hardware. That's where big companies like NVIDIA making a customized hardware is shown. And finally, from a skill building perspective, or from a programming perspective, or a learning perspective, JavaScript is going to basically play a very certain and a very prominent role as we move forward. Okay. So that's all I want to share. I think I would like to thank again. So these are my coordinates. my email ID is mentioned there, and I am based out of Bangalore, and these are all some of our social media links. You can take whatever, note down any kind of discussions, offline, collaborations is most welcome. With this note, I would like to thank you for giving me this opportunity to share, and I would like to take up any questions that our participants may have. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jayakumar Balasubramaniam.
Yeah.
Before going for the question answer session,
yes, sir.
I like to invite Sajan Singh Yadav, who is chairman of Rajasthan State Center. Sajan is online. You are unmute yourself and then you talk. Sajan?
ராம்தாஸ் சார் கொஞ்சம் எடுத்து விட சொல்லுங்க சார். ஷேரிங்
எது
ஷேரிங் கொடுத்துறீங்களா? ஸ்கிரீன் ஷேரிங் எடுத்து விட்டுருங்க அவரை.
Kindly switch off your screen sharing, sir.
Sure.
Okay, sir. We will move on to the question answer session. At the end of that, I will invite. So, anybody have any questions? Just you unmute yourself and then you ask a question.
Sir, Sajan is on the way, sir. He is on, sir.
Yeah.
Ramdas, Sajan is on the line, sir. Sajan Singh Yadav, your line on the line, sir. Please call in, sir, to give the.
Sajan Singh Yadav, sir.
Sajan, sir, can you hear me, sir?
Yeah.
Sajan, sir, good evening, sir. Are you getting, sir? Sir, your voice is not there, sir. Your voice, we are not on.
Mute your mic.
Unmute
your mic, sir.
Sir, our unmute பண்ணிருக்கார் சார். பட் வந்து அவர் இது வரல, ஆடியோ வரல சார்.
Okay.
Sir, நீங்க கண்டினியூ பண்ணுங்க. Will end of the will take.
Sir, Yadav sir, your voice is not coming out, sir. You are unmuted, but still your audio is not audible, sir. Please. Sir, question and answer, sir. Sir, Ramdas sir, question and answer.
Yes, sir. Okay, anybody have any questions? Hello.
Hello, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Sir, any IoT device developed for checking the human body parameters, sir? Economy, for checking the temperature, pressure, blood flow, no, in each point.
Yeah, quite a lot of things are there, sir. When it comes to the personal health area, there are a lot of devices are there. In fact, there are devices which are even available to even monitor the pets, right? I even come across a device which monitors body temperature, etc. for a dog. There is a startup working in Bangalore, right? Yeah, of course, for human beings, are available, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
மீட்டிங்ல இருக்கேன் சொல்லு. ஒரு 10 நிமிஷத்துல ஃப்ரீ ஆயிருவேன்.
Thank you, sir.
Welcome, sir.
Sir, Rajam sir, நீங்க
Hello.
Sir, நீங்க anybody have any questions, sir? Sir, Rajam sir, you just you talk about something. Rajam sir.
Yes, sir. Sir, good evening, sir. Yes, sir. So, you can hearing me, my voice?
Yes.
My question is the small things, sir. So now the society is going to change the IoT, Internet of Things, RPA, and some other things. So is it going to affect the employability of the poor study people, sir? So because I think it's a lagging of the employment ratio, I think, sir. That's what I am trying to ask.
So it's I don't see anything that is coming down, sir. It is actually going to become better, what I see, especially if you look at IoT as a domain. This particular pandemic has forced companies to innovate in a new areas. For example, some of the cases that I recently came across was we talk about social distancing, right? Okay, so how do we basically ensure social distancing effectively happens? Of course, we have Arogya Setu app, etc., but they're not foolproof, right? Countries like Israel are already thinking of embedding a chip in a human inside human beings, so they can't take out, because here we don't use Arogya Setu app. We can switch off and be happily, say, I'm following social distancing. In the similar lines, you talk about basically the personal protective equipments, right? Today we are having a lot of challenges in form of allowing whether the virus is entering or not. Medicos are facing a lot of challenges. So there are certain companies which have specifically started innovating post-pandemic era. But I see that the employability is concerned, at least due to IoT, I see it is only going to go up. Because it's not an area where they can just hire or fire people, or they can do a very low end kind of software development, which is what probably we tend to hear, right? A lot of people, you can see big companies are laying off people, etc. So I don't see that is happening for such industry, because it requires a lot of deep technical expertise, and the solutions are really going to make a difference. So I am already seeing, in the last 1.5 months, since I also work on the employability aspect, that I answered. The last 1.5 months, at least from June, July, almost 2 months, I see the hiring trends again picked up. Okay, at least these domains are concerned, right? So I see it's only going to act positively going forward.
Thank you so much, sir. Have a nice day.
Sir, Jaykumar sir.
Yes, sir.
Good evening. Another question.
Yes, sir.
In the early stages, students learned this C++, and Java. In between, they have gone for other languages. Now it is picking up, sir, again. The JavaScript and C++ in the IoT.
Yes, sir. It is always been there. So I'm not telling that C++ is not there. C++ is still used in areas like traditional embedded systems, right? But if you look at JavaScript, it is getting more popular due to IoT. That's what my slide was. So definitely, see, the problem is not whether it is C or C++ or JavaScript. It's about how well they know the subject, sir. It's like I always tell as an example, just buying a treadmill, I will not lose weight, right? I need to daily run in that, right? Or I buy a, the dumbbells, my health is not going to get better. I need to exercise. The same way, programming languages, I would say any engineer today, they wanted to have a good career, they can learn any language. I'm not telling whether it's a C++ or JavaScript. Very well, sir. That's a problem. Our people don't go in depth. They say, okay, I know something there, something here, right? Somehow I will scrape through my academia, right? I'm not against academia here. Okay, I know a lot of professors also joined here. Okay, but somehow they scrape through, but they don't go in depth and do certain things in a practical, hands-on way. Okay? So that's where the difference are. From that perspective, I would, if you ask me, any language, be it C, C++, Java, JavaScript, any language, one language, if they know very well, companies are ready to hire, sir. Okay, they can be from any domain, but they're struggling to hire because they know something about everything. Right? I know something here, something I did some course here, I did some certification here, but can you really solve a problem? Right? It's like saying I've done a swimming certification. Can you get into the water? No. I only taken. So that's where it is heading to. But as long as they solve the problem, definitely there are a lot of opportunities, sir, in terms of C or C++ or JavaScript.
Good evening, sir. My name is Mohan.
Sorry, sir.
I have one final question. If
Yes,
chairman
sir.
allows me, I will put it up.
Yes.
Yeah. Sir, it's a beautiful presentation. It's more oriented towards the, programming, computers, systems, all those things.
Right, sir.
My question is here. This IoT, it takes over the instrumentation profile from the industry, and moreover, I mean, now it's very difficult to differentiate control systems and instrumentation engineers from this, system software professionals. And see, in your presentation, IoT hardwares, the smart devices, all those things you have explained in the level 1.
Yes, sir.
See, there are, nowadays, the system engineer, software engineers picking up the instrumentation and control system engineers job in the industry. Particularly, I'm talking about heavy industries like power plants, oil and gas plants, refineries, all those things.
Yes, sir.
And now it's, most of the industries are becoming more, automated, and more systems and networks programmings have come inside. So it's very difficult to differentiate the role of instrument control system engineers job and software engineers job. My main concern now, the software engineers picking the control system engineers job. So how, do you feel the software engineers will understand the instrumentation and control system things?
Okay, fantastic question, sir. I would like to really thank you for bringing this question, because often, as one of the thing I already mentioned, if you see, IoT is so big and we are all seeing it in our own way, like, the elephant kind of picture, right? Okay, so today, what is happening, right? In fact, the instrumentation or control, or anybody who is from the core industry, them picking up any form of digitization skill. For example, I come from the other side, right? I come from a pure computer science background, and I saw a presentation by Mr. Sewage, right? All these terminologies were Greek and Latin to me. Probably I studied in my 12th standard or some basic knowledge in my engineering, right? Pretty much I couldn't understand any terminologies. The reason being, I come from a pure programming background. So on the other hand, if you take a traditional instrumentation engineer or control engineer, they have much more solid core industry knowledge about their workflows, about how this various equipment works, etc. So in my opinion, it's going to be reverse, sir. I would say, given a choice between picking up a computer science engineer to do a IoT job, or a core engineer or a control engineer to pick up IoT job, I'll any day hire an instrumentation and control engineer, because he comes from a core engineering background, and software can be trained. Software cannot be, software can be learned faster, unlike a core industry, which takes years to build an expertise, right? So from my perspective, how I see is that it's up to the traditional or whatever heavy industry instrumentation and control engineers to see IoT as an opportunity and leap forward in their career by obtaining these digital skills. That will take them places, sir, because a combination of core industry knowledge with the programming software system knowledge will basically make people really, really valuable. In fact, we even hear from big companies like Tata Steel, they want to completely transform their steel production using this IoT, right? So there are a lot of career opportunities open up for such engineers. Whereas on the contrary, a pure computer science engineer coming up and taking an instrumentation control job, it's going to be very difficult, sir. Because, for example, I told about myself, right? I don't understand any vocabulary that Mr. Stevenson spoke about, because I don't have any idea, right? So I would see the reverse trend. I see it's an opportunity for traditional engineers, even mechanical engineers, right? Okay, I know my own very close people in my own relative who is transitioning from a traditional hands-on mechanical two-wheeler R&D engineer to a data science engineer, because he knows these parts, how they work. Him becoming as successful as a data scientist is more than reverse. I hope this clarifies, sir.
Really, I'm very much thankful, sir. First time I'm hearing a computer science guy accepting the truth and openly telling this one. In many, I have interacted with many software professionals when they come into the heavy industries and working as a system engineers. They never accept this truth. But really, I'm thankful to you that you have accepted. Control system and instrument engineers definitely will understand every pieces of equipments in the industry, and if an opportunity given to them, to learn the programming, to work as a system engineers, they will do better than the
exactly.
computer science engineers.
Exactly.
Thank you very much.
Sir, exactly.
Yeah.
That's what you cannot differentiate between instrumentation and computer science. They have to go
So
together. Unless otherwise, this the coming years, instrumentation, computer science, and IoT are going to have a single track, and it is going to be unique.
Precisely,
and
sir.
Precisely. You cannot differentiate between the instrumentation and the computer control system.
Right.
But, I consider in many other fields, they go together. They go together. Even Reliance, I can find number of people in instrumentation are doing the control system work and instrumentation work. Right. So the future of the year is going to be a mix. Multitask persons are required.
Right,
so you cannot say that I know only instrumentation, I know only control system, and you should not have compartmentalized the field of work. You have to go together in the field of IoT. It is a good opportunity for everybody. Yes. Don't ask that which instrument is there in IoT. In every field of life, IoT is there. In case, I'll make one small example of healthcare system. In healthcare system, everybody is having diabetic. Yes. Diabetic, nowadays, they have given a small wrapping like a small device in the hand, and which has a sensor, which has an actuator, and has a processor. Yes. Actuator senses the blood level, insulin level of each person, and communicates to the processor, and the processor gives to the information to the host computer. And immediately the host computer gives an instruction saying that this fellow is highly diabetic or the insulin level is poor and he has to be insulin given. Then immediately a signal is going and the actuator gives a pin prick and the insulin is pumped in. And the insulin is pumped in. And that is done nowadays for every 1 hour or every 6 hours, depending upon the diabetic case. Right. And it is a system of IoT. The system of system wherein your data, your health data is recorded somewhere else. And it is being monitored and you are given a proper treatment. This is field of our life. So in future, don't say that IoT where I am going to use. You have to find an application. Each field of our, if I am a civil engineer, if I am an electronic engineer or a chemical engineer, I have to find an application of these things for making IoT. Then only you can sustain in future years. Otherwise, you will be in Stone Age only. You will be definitely you will be in Stone Age. So it's a good eye opener, and it should be applied in every field of life. That's what people like you can give some tutorial classes like this to our college students and see that it is brought to the limelight and people are knowing it. Thank you.
Sure, sir. Sure. So a couple of things I want to add before I close. I'm sure I'm taking more time. See, we spoke about the instrumentation control engineers and stuff like that, right? So typically, if you look at it, because we worked on some solutions, traditional PLC, SCADA, or any kind of monitoring, it's not new, right? It's been there probably for 30 odd years. People doing a plant monitoring is nothing new. All we are doing is we are adding a software layer on top of it so things can become easier, right? Here it's, I would like to say, like, invent part 1 and part 2. There's nothing new that we are going to invent. So that's one. So that way, an instrumentation control engineer or electrical or electronic engineer making more transition into the IoT side becomes easier. One. Second point, coming to talk about the computer science people, right? This is my own opinion. Somebody may have other opinion, right? Somehow, okay, this is my opinion because I worked with multiple diversified technologies and background. Somehow, we overblown these software engineers out of proportion. Okay? Just because the industry came 20-30 years back, they're getting 6-digit salaries compared to a core engineer. We somehow started over-emphasizing and giving over-importance to software engineers. I'm not discrediting computer science. I'm from that background. But that's the thing.
2K problem.
It's a societal problem because if you go and look in the West, right? If you go and look in Europe or if you go and look in US, they don't differentiate. I'm an engineer. Whether I'm a mechanical or I'm a civil or I'm a computer science, I'm an engineer. I'm supposed to do the job that I'm going to do. Only in our society, we are overblown the software. A civil engineer becomes software engineer. A mechanical engineering becomes software engineer. So we only mix it up And suddenly now, all of a sudden, when companies are laying off, we are trying to understand, oh, why they are getting laid off. Okay, so that's the whole thing. So thank you very much, sir. Any other questions? Unless I'm running out of time, I think it's already 10:50.
Okay, I have one question to Jayakumar, sir.
Yes, sir.
You mentioned about protocols, right? For
Yes,
device side as well as for interface. So
Yes,
these
sir.
protocols, RS-485, IP or MVB,
Yes, sir.
based on what they are chosen, is it purely based on the bandwidth or how they are chosen?
So it's a combination of many things. As I told, one is the range, right? Like what is the distance that like to communicate? Another is the power consumption, how much amount of electricity is going to consume. Third one, how much overall the cost that is coming out to be. For example, in some places, there may not be possible to even run wires or cables, right? Traditionally, we used to run 485. It may not be possible with these new age devices, that they may not even have a interface to do that, right? So in such scenarios, they take a combined approach of power management and the cost effectiveness, the range, and even for that matter, if you are going to utilize the battery, right? Like how cost effective it is to use the battery. So it's a combination of decisions that are used to take a decision with respect to the protocols to be used between the device and the edge or the IoT device, right? Sorry, IoT gateway. That is the challenge. But between the IoT gateway and the cloud, pretty much things are standard. I use pretty much have a, what is it, HTTP, which you use for a browser. Again, they have a lightweight of it, we call MQTT or COAP. Those protocols are pretty much standard, lightweight. There's no confusion there. Okay, either 1 or 2 or 3, that's all. But here, when it comes to device to gateway, there are a lot of protocols available because many industries are from the traditional background. So that's where the consideration of these parameters, because sometimes we even need to replace the equipment, which will become more expensive than implementing IoT. So that's where companies are taking combining multiple parameters, they are taking a decision, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Ramdas sir.
Yes.
Ramdas sir, shall we come?
Thank you, Mr. Jayakumar, sir, given the excellent presentation today. And then I thank Srivasan also. We have tomorrow Tuticorin and Tirunelveli local center doing that, going to do that technical program. Tirunelveli, they are going to talk about cyber security, and then cyber security by Mr. Vijay Krishna. And then Tanjavur local center, they have engineering application in food safety and security. Mr. Anand Kumar, Dr. S. Anand Kumar going to take our tomorrow session. With this, I think I thank the Salem local center chairman and the Ranipet local center chairman to arrange excellent 2 programs. Thanks one and all. Now, Narayan Swami will take over as a formal vote of thanks.
Thank you, sir. Good evening, sir. Good evening to everyone. Respected engineers, Rajagopal, Chairman, Mari Local Center, sir. Respected Engineer Ramdas, Chairman, Tamil Nadu State Center. Respected Dr. Rajavani, Council Member, Mari Local Center. And Engineer Gangian, sir, Chairman, Ranipet Local Center. Engineer Sale Malayalan, Honorary Secretary, Ranipet Local Center. Engineer Sajay Yadav, sir, Rajasthan Chairman, State Center. Dr. Rangareddy, sir. Engineer Kothari, sir. Dr. Rameshwar, sir. Dr. Ranganath, sir. Respect Chairman Arul, sir. Dr. Chelvan, Salem Local Center. Honorary Secretary S. Logan, the Salem Local Center. And our 2 speakers, Mr. Engineer S. Srivasan, Manager, Water System, Well, Ranipet. And Mr. Jayakumar Balasubramanian, MTech Information Technologies, Bangalore. Both have given the very nice lecture meetings. One from water system in BHL, as well as in IoT things, 5 things he has given. In water systems, He has given the why the water treatment is required in the Bell thermal plant and the water requirement. Everything he has given very nicely, and whatever the questions has been asked, he has given the clear-cut answer for that also. As well as our lecturer, Sri Jaikumar Balasubramanian, he has given the IoT things, 5 things he has given on that. First of all, he has given the architecture of IoT, and he has given 5 points: edge computing, smarter devices, things OS, and powerful hardware, as well as the JavaScript. And whatever the questions asked by our viewers, he has answered well and in satisfied level also. So, respected all the viewers on this web meeting, as Honorary Secretary of Madurai Local Center, I thank to everyone who has participated on this web meeting, as well as our chairman, Tamil Nadu State Center, Ramdas, has given tomorrow's program. Tirunelveli as well as Tanjavur, they have given the program. So tomorrow also join for that. Thank you very much. Once of all, again, I thank to everyone. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Ramdas. Thank you.